Hi and good morning, everyone. This is Harshit Bhardwaj. I'm continuing the lesson on TS Eliot. This is where we last left off. Just sharing the link on the Telegram channel for those who don't know it. Right, so good to see you all here. I've been getting all your messages on Telegram. We have done 8 or 9 lessons so far, and we got around 40-45 more lessons to do, more classes to wrap up the syllabus once and for all. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so can someone remind me? Thank you, Manikanta and Raj and Lakshmi, everyone. Let me quickly have a look at what all we've done. Let's just have a look at the previous videos. We've done Kantapura, E.M. Foster, 2 classes, 3 classes, W.B. Yeats, and yes, we've done W.B. Yeats, Kantapura, and E.M. Foster. Okay, yes. So out of 5 poets we have in paper 2, Philip Larkin, W.B. Yeats, W.H. Auden, T.S. Eliot and Ramanujan. This is the second poet we're doing after W.B. Yeats, T.S. Eliot, and this is Eliot is the big one. Out of 7 novels in paper 2, we have done E.M. Foster's Passage to India and Raja Rao's Kantapura. We got 5 more novels and 3 more poets after this. That that will do this paper 2 syllabus. What I'll be doing is I'll also be doing special sessions on the secondary topics like modernism, postmodernism, psychoanalysis, uh, feminism, and Marxism. We'll do in paper 1, and I'll do a special session on applying these literary theories, feminism, Marxism, psychoanalysis, modernism, on different texts. So I'll do a special one-off session for the literary theoretical part. Post-colonialism, of course. We've already talked about post-colonialism with Passage to India. I'll do a special session where I'll talk about post-colonialism, modernism, Marxism, and feminism. Maybe in 2 sessions, so that these scary theoretical part will be easy for you, clear for you. When it comes to paper two is sounds a little technical to most people. Now because I'm resuming classes after about a month, so let's everyone who's joined us, new students, there have been a lot of new students. Let me set the premise for paper 2. Now we're doing paper 2. We will finish paper 2. This year, about 7 or 8 English literature aspirants are appearing for mains in September, which is, in my understanding, which is a big number. I have never been in a situation where there are 7 or 8 students preparing for mains with me, and two of them are already rank holders. They cleared the exam last year. They got the ranks last year, and they are improving the ranks. So they are surely going to um, get through. And the rest are very good students, very good students. So I'm hopeful of getting in some good marks and good rankers with English literature. Hopefully, some more IFSs coming out this year. So in my experience of all those students who wrote mains and got ranks, paper two is more scoring. They tend to score more in paper two. But when you look at paper two, it is more technical and it's more difficult. And it is, in my understanding, paper two is technically more challenging than paper one. There's some reasons for it. First of all, most of the syllabus of paper one, like we have Gulliver's Travels, we have Shakespeare's plays, King Lear and The Tempest, and we have William Wordsworth, Daffodils. We don't have Daffodils in the syllabus, but Stinton Abbey and the other poems, Lucy poems, and even Henry Fielding's Tom Jones or Huckleberry Finn. All these texts we are familiar with. Shakespeare we have read in school. Most Indian students have read Shakespeare, at least King Lear and Tempest in school. Wordsworth poems we've done in school. So paper one syllabus is quite familiar. Gulliver's Travels we all know. Tom Jones, Huckleberry Finn we are aware of. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen we are all aware of. So if you're English literature graduate, you're pretty damn sure that you know the paper one syllabus very well. There are little technical aspects, very little technical aspects in paper one as compared to paper two. Of course, there are two main primary themes in paper one. One is feminism, and second is can anyone tell me the major thematic what do you say major thematic concern in paper one, where most questions come from? I've talked about this all the time, and that has been my approach, and it has been it comes from a specific critical critical literary theory school. Even though my favorite critical theory school is deconstruction by Derrida's deconstruction, but deconstruction is no longer part of the syllabus. It used to be. There were some questions in the past, not anymore. But my way of interpreting, dissecting the texts, and which I teach you all, uh, is based on something else. It's a mixture of. Uh, I've talked about this. Hmm? Who can tell me? If you were to only focus on one approach for the entire syllabus, just one approach, and you don't have time and you get confused by all these different uh, technical terminologies, and you have to just someone were to just give you one approach, what would that be? And that works very well with paper one, and of course it does work well with paper two, but paper two is a little technical. I'll come to that. So that approach is a socio political cultural historical background approach, right? It touches upon the Marxist approach because this is what Marxists also do, but it's not a Marxist approach. I do not look for the class dynamics in every text, only when is needed, but not psychoanalysis. Not psychoanalysis, even though it's my favorite, but not psychoanalysis. The most important way of reading that will help you get through UPSC will be the socio-political, cultural, historical background reading approach. And I've talked about this many, many times, and I'll keep talking about this because if you just understand this, you'll understand everything in the syllabus, because that is the whole idea of this UPSC subjective exam. So what I want you to do is, when you are given a literary text like, let's say, Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, that came out in the 19th century Victorian England. It's written by a female author, and the female authors were very rare at that time. It was hard for female authors to write or to do anything individually. Uh, Jane Austen wrote a lot of novels anonymously, but probably because she belonged to a good enough, well enough family, she could take the risk of printing these books out at her own expense and just uh, distributing. It is at the same time when someone like Mary Ann Evans had to write with a pen name. Yeah, can anyone tell me who's Mary Ann Evans? A great English novelist of the Victorian times. Mary Ann Evans. Hmm? Who's Mary Ann Evans? Don't Google it. If you know it, you know it. You don't know Mary Ann Evans? Mary Evans. Um, George Eliot. Yeah, George Eliot was Mary Ann Evans, if I'm not wrong. I always get confused with all these pen names. Yeah, so George Eliot was a woman. She was writing it the men's pen name. So it was that time. So how do you do social, political, cultural, historical background? Is we always try and understand the society of the time, the contemporary society in which the author was writing. It's very crucial. And we read the text from outside in and also inside out. Okay, how do you do the outside in approach? Thank you, Ayushi. Outside in is, first you understand the society, the contemporary society when the author was writing. So Jane Austen and George Eliot were writing in a Victorian society, an extremely patriarchal society. Okay, so understanding of the Victorian society is the key. And also because we have many Victorian texts, we have at least four novels and one big poem in our paper one syllabus. So that's like almost half, more than 50%. If you understand, take your time to understand the Victorian society, you are coming from outside in, and then you read the text, and then you find the parallels. That what do you understand about the outside society? Because now we are in 2022, and we are talking about the 19th century, 1860s, 1870s, 1890s, 1920, 30. Not 1920, 30, of course, the 19th century. So all you can understand about that society is by reading around on Wikipedia or wherever. Just try and understand what kind of political setup was there, what kind of a question about women's morality always comes, place of women in Victorian society, that question has come many times. So you understand whatever you can about the contemporary society, and then you read the text, and then you go from inside out. And when you read the text, what understanding of that society can you build? Because this question, if you look at last 5 years question, critique of contemporary society, this theme, it can be applied to any text. They can just critique of contemporary society and they can place it with any text. Discuss hard times as a critique of the contemporary British society. Discuss Gulliver's Travels as a critique of the contemporary British society. Discuss the rape of the lock as a critique of the contemporary British society. Discuss Tom Jones. You get the point. This question and the variation of this question would be at least 30 to 40% of your questions. So if you master this socio-political, cultural, historical contextualization, and you first start from outside in, build some understanding of that contemporary society, and then read the text, and from the text you build that contemporary society and find out how the author is commentating upon that society. Because always remember, literature is the mirror of its society, mirror of its time, mirror to its society, whatever the exact phrase is. It is supposed to be. When you when you read a classic, all these classic texts, you get to see the society they were writing in, at least some aspects of it. So you build that picture. Now coming to paper two, this gentleman that you're seeing on the screen, this is a Times magazine, which year? 1950. Okay, by 1950 he was obviously a big figure. Why paper two becomes technical is because of people like him, poets like him in the syllabus. Uh, a group of guys in the 20th century, Ezra Pound, T.S. Eliot. Auden was not part of it, but Auden did subscribe to their ideas. Virginia Woolf's husband, James Joyce. So we have three of those in our syllabus. So there was a group called the Bloomsbury Group, and there were many other modernist writers group, and their logo was to make it right. What make it what right? They believe that the way literature has been done, or the writing has been done in the Victorian times, uh, cannot express the sensibilities of the modern times, of the 20th century. If anyone's seen any of my modernist lesson, I talk about what makes the 20th century different from the Victorian society. What all social, political, historical, economical differences that spurned the 20th century into a completely different era. Right? People like Einstein's, Darwin's theory, Young, Freud, Kant, so many. It just flew in all directions. Completely, it's like the 19th century is a completely different era, and the 20th century is a completely different era. And then we have the world wars, the First World War and the Second World War. So these intelligent folks, they said that the literature has to be set right. The way writing is done, it has to. We have to make it new. We have to find different ways, newer ways to capture the sensibility of this time. So they absolutely abandoned the Victorian ideas and the Victorian way of writing literature. Some of them purely hated the Victorian writers. So our good luck or bad luck as UPC aspirants is that out of that big bunch of modernist experimental writers, we have three in the syllabus: James Joyce, T.S. Eliot, and Virginia Woolf. Of course, we have W.B. Yeats, Auden, and D.H. Lawrence, and Foster, and they are also modernists, but they are not as technically hung on as these three: Eliot, Joyce, and Virginia Woolf. We have Mrs. Dalloway, Poems of T.S. Eliot, and The Portrait of an Artist. These three, they are the landmarks, and they will always be landmarks. They created a completely new way of creating literature. They are difficult because they bring along some difficult technical experimentations, both in prose and poetry. Now, having said that they are difficult, as I always keep telling you, and I just told you that paper two, you get to score more. Why that happens? I've tried to think about it. Why that happens? Because paper one is easier. Most students prepare paper one better. Most students are scared of paper two because we have Eliot, Joyce, Virginia Woolf, and then we also have Samuel Beckett waiting for Godot. Difficult texts. Then why you can score more in paper two? It's probably because UPSC is not really looking to test your technical understanding of literature. That has been my view, and I'm very, very sure about it now. Any optional, they are really not. This whole idea that UPSC is testing your in-depth understanding of the subject is this idea is flawed. They are not hiring subject matter experts. You have to understand that. If your optional is geography and you're going to become a DM or an IAS or an IPS or IFS, will you ever need that technical, in-depth experience and understanding of geography or any other subject? No. Same with literature. They're not looking for research scholars, subject matter experts, technical gurus. They're not. They're not. The reason they give you optional is that okay, pick any subject. So this is basically they're saying, dude, pick any subject, whatever subject you want to pick, whether you studied it or not. Pick any subject, and we'll test you how you organize your ideas around that based on because you have to pick a topic. So you pick the topic of literature. How do you first of all understand the complicated bits of any narrative? Then how do you express the complicated bits in a simpler language, legible, understandable, clear language? So you're given a set of complicated texts from all over the world, and you are asked questions in a complicated manner, not deep, technically deep questions. Ideas are similar, simple. They just touch upon the very simple ideas. Most of the time, because it's a UPSC exam and your understanding of the socio political, cultural, historical context is overall, as an officer with UPSC, is the most important understanding that you can develop. Are you with me so far? Right? So they give you given a text. They want you to understand when you read a text, how many narratives, how many layers of that narrative can you unravel? Can you decode communication? Because communication comes in all forms. You become an officer and you are going to meet 50 different people, and people, the communication of people when you are in a public office, it comes coded. Right? So the communication you have with your bosses, communication you have with your subordinate staff, communication you have with your local politicians or the national politicians or the press or the media or the common man or the police or the administration. It's all different kinds of communication. And you're going to have to decode it and respond to it relevantly and appropriately. You cannot have the same line for everyone. So they're testing you. Are you able to do it? Are you able to understand, first of all, understand this difficult piece of text? And then, two, are you able to write a relevant answer to a specific question clearly and simply? Most answer evaluations that I'm getting, I have tons of answer evaluation students at the moment, and I'm actually struggling with time. The biggest mistake of your answers, the biggest number one mistake of your answers that every single student does, at least in the beginning, you do not address the question at all. You do not address the question and you don't understand it, that you're not addressing the question. Keep giving you the example of that very easy question from Passage to India, and I'll give you that again. Um, is do you agree? Do you agree with Fielding's view that Dr. Aziz is the symbol of India's muddle? You must have heard this question. It's a very popular question. Let me repeat it. Exact question that came in UPSC exam. Do you agree with Fielding's view that Dr. Aziz is the symbol of India's muddle? And this question is part of my test series. I gave out this question, exact question. And I've yet to see somebody writing it correctly. And it's probably one of the simplest questions. Another question is again from Passage to India. What happened at the caves? I think this question came some times ago. I don't know when, but it came. And then it comes in different variations. They make it difficult, they add some more bits to it, but it remains the same. So when they ask you what happened at the caves, hmm? When they're asking you what happened at the caves, 99% of you summarize the incidents and events of what happened at the caves. You just paraphrase what happened at the caves. Now you don't understand. A simple thing is UPSC will never ask you such questions where they're asking you, okay, story, tell us